Fleet Marshal Vortek stood before the largest holographic display in the Empire's military headquarters. Red warning lights flashed across 17 star systems where human forces had struck simultaneously. In his 300 years of service, he had never seen anything like it. Casualties? He asked his intelligence chief. 47 installations destroyed or heavily damaged. Over 200 ships lost. Estimated 15,000 Imperial personnel killed or missing. Vortek's jaw tightened. The Empire hadn't lost that many ships in the last century combined. Every previous rebellion had been crushed before causing significant damage. How did they coordinate simultaneous attacks across such distances? The intelligence chief looked uncomfortable. We believe they have some form of instantaneous communication system. Our networks would take hours to coordinate what they accomplished in minutes. High Inquisitor Zixthal entered the command center with barely contained fury. His gray skin had darkened to almost black, a sign of extreme agitation among the hegemony species. I want every available ship mobilized, he declared. We will crush this rebellion completely. Vortek nodded grimly. I'm deploying the core battle fleets. 60,000 ships will converge on the human home system within the week. The Empire's response was massive and brutal. Fleet after fleet departed from military bases across the galaxy, all heading toward Earth. The humans would pay for their impudence with complete extermination. What about the other species? Zixthal asked. Any signs they might join this rebellion? None yet, the intelligence chief reported. But if humans can defeat our forces, others might be encouraged to try. The real fear was galactic uprising. For 3,000 years, the Empire had maintained control through fear and superior technology. If that technological advantage was gone, every conquered species might see an opportunity for freedom. Admiral Kate Miller watched the approaching Empire fleets from humanity's hidden command center on Titan. Her sensors showed an overwhelming force converging on Earth. More ships than most species had ever seen in one place. They're taking the bait, she said with satisfaction. Jake Morrison stood beside her, studying the tactical display. Are you sure about this? They outnumber us 50-1. Kate smiled coldly. Numbers don't matter if they're attacking the wrong target. The Empire's intelligence was 50 years out of date. They still believed humanity's population and industry were concentrated in the solar system. They had no idea that millions of humans had been secretly relocated to hidden colonies across the galaxy. Meanwhile, Captain Tony Evans defended one of those hidden colonies as Empire forces finally located it. His small fleet faced overwhelming odds, but they had advantages the Empire didn't understand. Multiple contacts dropping out of FTL, his sensor operator announced. Looks like an entire battle group. Tony watched 20 massive Empire warships take up attack positions around the human colony world. Each ship was larger than his entire fleet combined. All ships implement dispersion protocol, he ordered. The human ships suddenly began separating. What appeared to be 5 cruisers became 20 smaller vessels, then 40, then 80. The Empire's targeting systems, designed to track large ships, struggled to handle so many individual targets. What are we looking at? The Empire commander demanded. His tactical officer stared at the readings in confusion. They appear to be multiplying, sir. Each ship is becoming multiple smaller craft. Ben Parker's modular ship design was inspired by human biology. Just as the human body was made of individual cells working together, these ships were made of independent modules that could operate separately when needed. The Empire opened fire with their massive beam weapons. The energy blasts were powerful enough to destroy any conventional ship with a single hit. But the human vessels were no longer where the beams were aimed. Amy Foster's squadron used micro-jumps to appear behind the Empire formation. Her ships fired streams of kinetic projectiles that punched through the enemy's rear shields. The Empire had designed their defenses to face threats from the front, not from multiple directions simultaneously. Shields are useless against solid projectiles, the Empire tactical officer reported. Kinetic energy is transferring directly to hull integrity. The Empire commander had faced dozens of rebellions, but never one like this. His ships were taking damage from weapons they couldn't effectively defend against, fired by enemies that could appear and disappear at will. All ships, emergency FTL jump, he ordered. We need to regroup and reassess, but 3 of his ships couldn't comply. Tony's forces had used swarm drones to damage their FTL drives. The crippled vessels could only watch as the rest of the fleet abandoned them. Similar battles erupted wherever the Empire found human colonies. Each engagement followed the same pattern: overwhelming Empire forces discovering that their technological superiority meant nothing against human tactics and innovation. Dr. Sam Mitchell's drone swarms proved particularly effective. The small, intelligent machines could learn from each battle, becoming more effective with every engagement. They studied Empire defensive patterns and adapted their attack methods accordingly. Lisa Chang introduced her next innovation during the battle for New Geneva Colony. Her ships used quantum phase shifting to become partially incorporeal, allowing Empire energy beams to pass harmlessly through them. Impossible, the attacking Empire admiral declared. Matter cannot exist in multiple phases simultaneously. His science officer checked the readings twice before responding. Sir, their ships appear to be shifting between dimensions. Our weapons are hitting alternate versions of their vessels. The Empire's scientific understanding was based on 3,000 years of successful conquest. They had never needed to innovate because their existing technology was always superior. Facing genuinely new science left them helpless. Back at Earth, Vortex's massive fleet arrived to find the solar system almost empty. A few automated defense platforms protected the inner planets, but there were no human ships or major installations visible. "Where is their fleet?" Vortex demanded. His sensors officer reviewed the scans carefully. Minimal military presence detected. Some orbital stations, but nothing like the resistance we expected. The Empire had brought 60,000 ships to destroy humanity's military power. Instead, they found what appeared to be a nearly defenseless system, with most of its population evacuated. "It's a trap," his tactical advisor warned. "They must be hiding somewhere." Vortex considered the possibilities. Maybe the humans had moved their fleet to defend colonies elsewhere. Maybe they were planning an ambush. Maybe they had simply fled in terror. "Begin systematic bombardment of all planetary installations," he ordered. "If they won't fight, we'll destroy everything they value." The Empire fleet spread out to attack Earth's orbital facilities and lunar colonies. But as they moved into position, hidden sensors tracked their every movement. Admiral Kate Miller had been waiting for this moment. "All Ghost Fleet units, prepare for Operation Retribution," she broadcast on encrypted channels. Across the galaxy, human ships that had been hiding in asteroid fields and nebulae began moving toward their assigned targets. The Empire had concentrated their forces for the assault on Earth, leaving their own territory lightly defended. Steve Adams coordinated the intelligence network that had mapped every important Empire installation. Military bases, industrial centers, communication hubs, all had been identified and targeted. "Phase 1 complete," he reported to Kate. "Enemy fleets have taken the bait." Alex Turner's research had produced one final surprise: weapons that could disrupt FTL drives from long range. Empire ships that had traveled across the galaxy to attack Earth suddenly found themselves trapped in the solar system. "Sir," Vortex engineering officer reported, "we're detecting quantum interference with our FTL systems. Jump drives are offline. The trap was perfect. The Empire had sent their most powerful fleets to destroy humanity's home system, only to discover it was nearly empty. Meanwhile, their own worlds were defenseless against the human counterattack that was already beginning." Ryan Bell led the strike on the Empire's primary naval base at Dominion Secundus. His fleet appeared without warning in the supposedly secure system and began systematic destruction of shipyard facilities. "This is impossible," the base commander transmitted. "How did primitive humans acquire instantaneous travel?" Ryan's response was broadcast across all Empire communication channels. "We've been watching you for 50 years, learning your weaknesses, planning your defeat. Today, the galaxy learns that the Empire is not invincible." The message spread through Empire space faster than their fleets could respond to the multiple human attacks. For the first time in 3,000 years, Imperial subjects learned that their masters could be beaten. On a dozen worlds, conquered species watched human ships destroy Empire installations with tactics and technology that seemed impossible. The psychological impact was enormous. Back at Earth, Vortex realized the magnitude of his error. His forces were trapped in a system that contained nothing worth conquering, while the real human fleet was attacking his own territory. "Order all ships to defensive positions," he commanded, "and send a priority message to all sector commands. The rebellion is more dangerous than we believed." Jake Morrison floated in zero gravity, watching the massive construction bay through the observation window. Sparks flew as welders worked on the hull of humanity's newest warship. The vessel looked nothing like the sleek Empire ships that patrolled the galaxy. This one was built for war. How many more weeks? Jake asked the woman beside him. Dr. Lisa Chang checked her tablet. 3 weeks for the quantum drives. Maybe 4 for the weapon systems. Jake nodded. 50 years had passed since the Empire crushed Earth's resistance. 50 years of pretending to be beaten while secretly building the largest fleet in human history. The Empire thought humans were weak and stupid. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The construction site was hidden in the asteroid belt beyond Pluto. Dozens of huge rocks had been hollowed out and turned into shipyards. No Empire patrol had ever come this far into the solar system. They considered humans too primitive to be worth watching closely. Admiral Miller wants to see you, Lisa said. Jake pushed off the wall and floated toward the command center. The facility buzzed with activity. Engineers worked on new weapon designs while pilots trained in simulators. Everyone knew the time was almost here. Admiral Kate Miller stood before a massive holographic display showing the entire galaxy. Red dots marked Empire fleet positions. Green dots showed human settlements that the Empire didn't know existed. Jake, good timing, Kate said without turning around. Dr. Turner just finished the shield tests. Dr. Alex Turner looked tired but excited. The adaptive shields work perfectly. They can absorb energy blasts and redirect them back at the enemy. The Empire has never seen anything like it, Jake smiled. The Empire relied on energy weapons that had worked for thousands of years. They never bothered to improve because no one had ever challenged them successfully. That was their weakness. What about the other sites? Jake asked. Kate waved her hand and the display zoomed out. Hundreds of green dots appeared across the galaxy. Captain Santos reports that all colonies are ready. The jump gates are online and hidden. Maria Santos had spent 20 years building secret human settlements on remote worlds. Each colony looked like a simple mining operation or research station. The Empire never suspected that humans had spread across dozens of star systems. And the intelligence network? Jake continued. Captain Adams made contact with our people inside Empire space last week, Kate replied. They've mapped every major fleet position and defense grid. We know where to hit them. Steve Adams commanded a small trade ship that traveled between human worlds and Empire outposts. The Empire saw him as a harmless merchant. In reality, he was humanity's top spy, gathering information that would soon prove deadly to their enemies. Ben Parker walked into the command center carrying a strange-looking rifle. The new weapons are ready for field testing. Jake took the rifle and examined it. It felt heavier than standard Empire energy weapons. Projectile-based? Kinetic accelerator, Ben explained. Fires metal slugs at incredible speed. No energy signature to detect. No shields can stop solid matter moving that fast. The Empire had forgotten about projectile weapons thousands of years ago. They considered them primitive and useless. Ben had proven them wrong by creating weapons that could punch through any known armor. How many ships do we have now? Kate asked. 10,412, Lisa answered immediately. All equipped with quantum drives, adaptive shields, and the new weapon systems. Jake felt a chill. Humanity had built a ghost fleet larger than most Empire sector forces. Every ship was crewed by volunteers who had trained in secret for decades. They were ready to fight and die for human freedom. The Empire thinks we have maybe 50 outdated ships guarding Earth, Kate said. They have no idea what's coming. The plan was brilliant in its simplicity. For 50 years, humans had acted defeated and helpless. They paid tribute to the Empire and followed every rule. Meanwhile, they had been preparing for the largest military operation in galactic history. What about the other species? Jake asked. Alex looked up from his work. Our contacts among the Veltar and Zeph High are interested. They've been slaves even longer than us. If we can prove the Empire can be beaten, they might join us. The Empire ruled through fear. They had conquered hundreds of species over thousands of years. No one had ever successfully rebelled because the Empire always crushed resistance before it could grow. This time would be different. When do we begin? Jake asked. Kate stared at the holographic display for a long moment. 2 weeks. We hit them simultaneously across 17 systems. The Empire won't know what happened until it's too late. Lisa worked furiously at her computer terminal. I'm uploading the final target assignments to all fleet commanders. Each strike group knows exactly where to go and what to do. The beauty of the quantum drive system was instant travel across any distance. Human ships could appear anywhere in the galaxy without warning. The Empire's communication networks were too slow to coordinate a response. Remember, Kate addressed everyone in the room, this isn't just about revenge. We're fighting for every species the Empire has enslaved. We're fighting for freedom itself. Jake looked around the command center. Scientists, engineers, pilots, and soldiers worked together with single-minded purpose. They had different backgrounds and skills, but they shared one goal: ending the Empire's tyranny forever. Ben activated a wall screen showing the construction bays. Thousands of workers put finishing touches on humanity's secret weapons, ships that looked crude compared to Empire vessels but carried technology the galaxy had never seen. The Empire made one mistake, Alex said quietly. They underestimated us. Kate smiled grimly. They think humans are weak, because we don't fight like other species. They're about to learn that different doesn't mean inferior. Jake watched sparks fly from another welding job. In 2 weeks, those sparks would be weapons fire. The galaxy would discover that humanity had spent 50 years preparing for this moment. The Empire thought they had conquered Earth. Instead, they had created their own destruction. All stations report ready, Lisa announced. Kate nodded. Then it's time. Send the message to all fleet commanders. Operation Liberation begins in 14 days. The countdown to war had started. Humanity's ghost fleet would soon emerge from the shadows to challenge an empire that had ruled for 3,000 years. The galaxy was about to change forever, and it would never be the same again. Dr. Lisa Chang stood in her laboratory aboard the human command ship, watching test results that would have seemed impossible just months ago. Her latest breakthrough had taken quantum physics into completely new territory. The phase shift generators are stable, she reported to Admiral Kate Miller through the communication link. Ships can now exist in multiple dimensional states simultaneously. Kate studied the technical readouts with growing excitement. What does that mean in practical terms? Lisa activated a holographic demonstration. A model ship flickered and became translucent, then solid again. Our vessels can become partially incorporeal. Enemy weapons pass right through them while our own weapons remain effective. It was humanity's greatest advantage, the ability to innovate under pressure. While the Empire relied on technology that hadn't changed in centuries, human scientists were making new discoveries every day. Captain Jake Morrison tested the new phase shift technology during a raid on the Empire's supply depot at Vega Station. His ship approached the heavily defended facility in normal space, then activated the phase generators just as the station opened fire. The Empire's energy beams passed harmlessly through his vessel, like it was made of ghost light. Jake's crew watched in amazement as massive destructive forces had no effect on their ship. Target their shield generators, Jake ordered. His kinetic weapons remained fully effective despite the phase shift. Metal projectiles punched through the station's defenses while return fire couldn't touch his ship. It was like fighting an enemy that couldn't be hurt. Impossible, the station commander screamed. Nothing can be solid and incorporeal at the same time. But humanity had learned to make the impossible routine. Meanwhile, engineer Ben Parker was solving a different problem entirely. The Empire's ships were heavily armored and shielded, making them difficult targets even for kinetic weapons. His solution was typically human. If you can't go through the defenses, go around them. Boarding pods ready for deployment, he announced to Captain Amy Foster. Amy looked at the strange torpedo-shaped craft with skepticism. You want us to physically board Empire ships? During combat? Ben grinned. Their shields stop projectiles and energy weapons. They don't stop small craft moving slowly enough to be mistaken for debris. It was another uniquely human tactic. While most galactic species fought ship-to-ship battles from safe distances, humans were willing to get close and personal. The Empire had never faced enemies who would actually board their vessels. Amy's squadron tested the boarding tactic against an Empire patrol cruiser near the Centauri system. Her ships launched dozens of small pods that drifted toward the enemy vessel like harmless wreckage. The Empire captain ignored the debris field, focusing on the human ships that were maintaining a respectful distance. His crew felt confident behind their shields and armor. No primitive human weapon could threaten a ship of the Imperial Navy. Then the debris attached to his hull and began cutting through the armor. Sir, we have hull breaches on multiple decks, his damage control officer reported in panic. Something is cutting through from the outside. 20 human boarding teams entered the Empire ship simultaneously. They moved through the corridors with practiced efficiency. Their objectives clear: disable the FTL drive, capture the bridge, secure any useful intelligence. The Empire crew had never trained for boarding actions because no species had ever attempted them. Their ship was designed to fight external threats, not enemies who were already inside. Security teams to all decks. The captain ordered desperately. Repel boarders. But his security forces were equipped for riot control among conquered populations, not combat against trained soldiers. The human boarding teams moved like shadows through the ship, avoiding confrontation while completing their mission. Within 20 minutes, the Empire cruiser was dead in space, its crew captured, and its computers being downloaded by human intelligence specialists. Amy's ships hadn't fired a single shot. Dr. Alex Turner was working on an even more ambitious project: adaptive artificial intelligence for combat drones. His creation was a swarm of small learning machines that became more effective with each battle. Initial deployment successful, he reported to Admiral Kate Miller. The AI drones have engaged Empire forces at 3 separate locations and shown consistent improvement in tactics. Kate watched drone footage from the latest engagement. The small machines moved with increasing coordination, learning to work together in ways their programmers had never anticipated. They're evolving their own tactics, Kate observed. Faster than we could teach them, Alex nodded proudly. Each drone shares its experiences with the entire swarm through quantum communication. They're learning from every battle simultaneously. The Empire faced enemies that literally became smarter with each encounter. Their standard response of overwhelming firepower was useless against opponents who adapted in real time. Steve Adams coordinated humanity's most important innovation: the intelligence network that penetrated every level of Imperial society. His agents had spent decades learning Empire languages, customs, and security procedures. We have access to their strategic planning databases, he reported during a secure briefing. Complete fleet movements, supply schedules, diplomatic communications, everything. Knowledge was proving to be humanity's deadliest weapon. The Empire fought blind while humans knew their every move in advance. It was like playing chess against an opponent who could see all your pieces. Captain Tony Evans demonstrated another human innovation during the defense of Alpha Centauri colony. Instead of trying to match the Empire's massive warships, he used swarm tactics that turned their size against them. Deploy microfighters, he ordered. His cruiser released hundreds of single-person craft, each no larger than an Empire shuttle. The tiny fighters were too small and numerous for conventional targeting systems to handle. Effectively, the attacking Empire dreadnought tried to engage individual fighters with weapons designed to destroy capital ships. It was like using a cannon to swat flies. Most shots missed completely, while the few hits were wasteful overkill. Meanwhile, the human microfighters swarmed around the massive enemy vessel, their combined firepower gradually overwhelming its defenses. The Empire crew watched helplessly as their mighty dreadnought was destroyed by enemies they could barely see. Lisa Chang's research produced another breakthrough that changed everything. Portable quantum drives small enough for individual soldiers. Human boarding teams could now appear inside enemy ships without using pods or cutting through hulls. Personal teleportation successful, she announced after the first field test. Range limited to 1 kilometer, but that's enough for ship-to-ship operations. Jake Morrison's commandos used the new technology to capture an entire Empire battle station without firing a shot. They simply appeared inside the facility's command center and took control before anyone could react. The Empire's security was based on controlling access points, doors, airlocks, docking bays. Personal teleportation made all physical barriers meaningless. Humans could appear anywhere, anytime. Ben Parker combined multiple innovations into his masterpiece, ships that could completely reconfigure themselves during battle. What looked like a single cruiser could become a fighter squadron, a missile platform, or a boarding craft as the situation required. Transformation complete, Amy Foster reported as her ship changed from exploration mode to combat configuration. Ready for engagement. The Empire's tactical planning relied on knowing what type of ship they were fighting. Against vessels that could change their entire function in seconds, all their battle doctrine became useless. Dr. Sam Mitchell created weapons that learned from their targets. His smart projectiles studied Empire shield frequencies and adapted to penetrate them more effectively. Each shot was more accurate and destructive than the last. Adaptive ammunition showing 97% hit rates, he reported. The projectiles are learning to predict enemy evasive maneuvers. The Empire discovered they were fighting enemies who used their own defensive reactions against them. Every dodge, every shield adjustment, every tactical response was studied and countered by human weapons that thought for themselves. Alex Turner's final innovation was the most disturbing to Empire commanders. Drones that could disguise themselves as Imperial vessels. The machines studied enemy ship designs and replicated them perfectly, infiltrating Empire formations undetected, unknown. Contact approaching Imperial Patrol Group 7. A sensor operator. Reported. Identification confirmed as Empire Heavy. Cruiser designation Vengeance, his captain replied. Cleared to approach. 20 minutes later, Patrol Group 7 was destroyed by weapons fire from inside their own formation. The disguised human drone had waited until it was surrounded by Empire ships before revealing its true nature. The psychological impact was devastating. Empire crews began viewing every ship with suspicion, never certain if their allies were really human infiltrators waiting to strike. Admiral Kate Miller reviewed the reports of human innovations with satisfaction. In just weeks, her forces had developed tactics and technology that turned the Empire's strengths into weaknesses. They're starting to panic, Steve Adams reported from his spy network. Empire commanders are requesting permission to withdraw from combat zones. Commander Ryan Bell gripped the command chair as his ship emerged from quantum space. Around him, 50 human vessels appeared in perfect formation. They had traveled instantly across 300 light-years to reach the Empire's forward command base at Kepler Station. Target acquired, his weapons officer announced. Station defenses are powering up, Ryan smiled grimly. The Empire station looked like a massive metal flower, with defensive platforms arranged around a central hub. Beautiful and deadly, just like everything the Empire built. All ships execute Pattern Alpha, Ryan commanded. The human fleet scattered in seemingly random directions. To Empire observers, it looked like panic. In reality, every ship knew exactly where to go and what to do. The station's defensive coordinator watched the strange human behavior with confusion. Imperial tactical doctrine called for ships to maintain formation and engage in direct combat. These humans were acting like frightened animals. Fire when ready, the coordinator ordered. Brilliant energy beams lanced out from the station's weapons platforms. They were designed to destroy conventional warships with single shots. But the human ships were no longer where the beams were aimed. Captain Amy Foster's destroyer squadron materialized behind the station's main defensive array. Her ships had used their quantum drives to make micro-jumps that brought them inside the Empire's defensive perimeter. Fire all weapons, Amy ordered. Instead of energy beams, the human ships unleashed streams of metal projectiles accelerated to incredible speeds. The Empire's shields were designed to deflect energy attacks. They were useless against solid matter moving at near light speed. The projectiles tore through the station's hull like paper. Secondary explosions rippled across multiple levels as the kinetic energy transferred into heat and destruction. Empire personnel who had never seen their shields fail watched in shock as their supposedly impregnable fortress came apart. How are they doing this? The station coordinator demanded. His tactical officer stared at the sensor readings. Their weapons don't use energy signatures. Our shields can't detect them to deflect them. Meanwhile, Ryan's main fleet had split into 3 groups that attacked the station from different angles. Each group used different tactics. Some ships fired kinetic slugs. Others launched swarms of small drones that overwhelmed point defenses. Dr. Sam Mitchell's weapons worked exactly as designed. The drones were too small and numerous for the Empire's targeting systems to handle effectively. They attached to the station's hull and began cutting through armor with plasma torches. The Empire's response was predictable. They sent distress signals to nearby patrol fleets and began powering up their most powerful weapons. But human intelligence had predicted this reaction. Steve Adams watched the battle from his hidden observation post on a nearby asteroid. His spy network had mapped every Empire response protocol. He knew exactly which ships would arrive and when. Right on schedule, he muttered, watching 3 Empire patrol cruisers drop out of faster-than-light travel. The Empire ships immediately moved to engage the human fleet. Their captains were confident that superior firepower would quickly end this annoying rebellion. They had crushed similar uprisings hundreds of times before, but these rebels fought differently. Ryan's ships suddenly stopped their individual attacks and began working together in perfect coordination. Groups of 5 vessels would focus fire on a single Empire ship, then scatter before return fire could hit them. The Empire cruisers found themselves fighting ghosts. Every time they locked onto a human ship, it would disappear and reappear somewhere else. The human quantum drives allowed tactical mobility that the Empire had never encountered. "Impossible," the lead Empire captain declared. "No species has instantaneous travel capability." His weapons officer looked up from his console. "Sir, they're not using standard faster-than-light drives. Energy signatures suggest something completely different." Lisa Chang's quantum drive technology was based on principles the Empire had never discovered. Instead of creating tunnels through space like traditional FTL, the quantum drives folded space itself. Ships could appear anywhere within a light year instantly. Amy Foster's squadron demonstrated another human innovation. Her ship suddenly split apart, each vessel separating into multiple smaller craft. The Empire's targeting computers, designed to track single large ships, couldn't keep up with dozens of smaller targets. "What kind of ships are these?" the Empire Station coordinator asked in desperation. The answer was uniquely human. While the Empire built massive, powerful vessels designed to win through superior firepower, humans had created modular ships that could adapt to any situation. A single cruiser could become a fighter squadron when needed. Ben Parker's kinetic weapons proved devastating against Empire technology. The metal slugs punched through armor, shields, and hull plating with equal ease. Empire ships that had been invincible for centuries began exploding under sustained kinetic bombardment. The battle lasted only 20 minutes. When it ended, Kepler Station was a drifting wreck, and all 3 Empire patrol cruisers were destroyed or disabled. The human fleet had lost exactly 0 ships. Ryan opened communications to the surviving Empire personnel. "This is Commander Bell of the Human Liberation Fleet. Surrender now and you will be treated according to the Galactic Conventions of War." The station coordinator stared at his ruined command center. Half his staff was dead or injured. His shields were down, weapons offline, life support failing. The humans had destroyed everything in minutes. "How?" he asked simply. Ryan smiled. "You forgot that different doesn't mean inferior. Prepare to be boarded." Similar battles erupted across 17 star systems simultaneously. Human strike forces hit Empire bases, patrol fleets, and communication centers. Each engagement followed the same pattern. Empire forces expecting conventional combat, humans using tactics and technology the galaxy had never seen. Captain Jake Morrison led the assault on Rigel Station using another human innovation. His ships approached the heavily defended base by flying straight through a nearby asteroid field. Empire sensors lost track of them among the rocks and metal debris. Emerging from cover in 3, 2, 1, Jake's fleet burst from the asteroid field at point-blank range. Their kinetic weapons opened fire before the Empire defenders could react. The station's shields, designed to stop attacks from long range, were useless against weapons fired from inside their defensive perimeter. Alex Turner's adaptive shield technology proved equally effective in defense. When Empire ships finally managed to return fire, their energy beams were absorbed by the human shields and redirected back at the attackers. Empire captains watched in disbelief as their own weapons destroyed their own ships. The news of the attack spread through Empire space at the speed of their communication networks. Sector governors who had dismissed human activities as primitive suddenly realized they faced a real threat. But it was too late for warnings. The human strikes had been planned to hit simultaneously, before news of any single attack could reach other systems. By the time the Empire realized what was happening, 17 of their bases had been destroyed or captured. High Inquisitor Zixthal received the first battle reports with growing alarm. According to the surviving witnesses, humans had displayed technology that shouldn't exist and used tactics that defied conventional military thinking. "Impossible," he declared. "Humans don't have quantum drives or adaptive shielding." His aide nervously presented more reports. "Sir, all 17 attacks followed similar patterns. Human ships appearing without warning, using weapons our shields can't stop, then disappearing before we can respond." Zixthal studied the tactical analyses with growing unease. For 3,000 years, Empire victory had been guaranteed by technological superiority. If humans had developed better technology, the implications were terrifying. "Order all sector fleets to maximum alert," he commanded, "and find out how humans acquired these capabilities." But the real shock was yet to come. As Empire Intelligence Services began investigating, they discovered that human activity had been far more extensive than anyone realized. The primitive species they had dismissed as harmless had been preparing for this moment for 50 years. The galactic balance of power had shifted in a single day, and the Empire was only beginning to understand how completely they had been outmaneuvered. The age of imperial dominance was ending, and humanity had fired the first shots in the war that would reshape the galaxy. High Inquisitor Zixthal stood on the bridge of his massive warship, looking down at the holographic display of the galaxy. 3,000 years of Empire rule had painted most star systems in the gold color that marked Imperial territory. It was beautiful. The bridge crew worked quietly around him. All were members of the hegemony, the ruling species that had built the Empire from nothing. They were tall, gray-skinned beings with large black eyes that could see across multiple light spectrums. Evolution had made them perfect for space travel and war. "Report from Sector 7, his aide announced. Zixthal barely glanced at the data. Some minor species had been caught smuggling weapons. The usual punishment would apply, complete destruction of their home world as an example to others. "Handle it," he said dismissively. The Empire had crushed hundreds of rebellions over the millennia. Each time, the response was swift and brutal. No species had ever posed a real threat to Imperial might. The secret was simple: destroy any resistance before it could spread. Governor Kelnara's image appeared on the communication screen. She looked frustrated, which was unusual for someone overseeing such a simple assignment. "High Inquisitor, the humans are behind schedule on their tribute payments again." Zixthal sighed. Humans were particularly annoying subjects. They were primitive, emotional, and stubbornly independent. Most species learned to accept their place after conquest. Humans still acted like they deserved freedom. "How much are they short?" 15%. They claim their mining operations are having technical difficulties. Zixthal considered ordering a demonstration bombing of one of their cities. But humans were useful for manual labor, and their world produced several rare minerals the Empire needed. Give them 1 more month. If they miss another payment, destroy one of their orbital stations. The human reservation system had worked well for 50 years. Keep them confined to their home system. Take whatever resources the Empire needed and let them play at civilization. It was more efficient than complete extermination. "Sir," his weapons officer interrupted, "Fleet Marshal Vortek is requesting permission to upgrade the outer sector defenses." Zixthal laughed. "Against what enemy? No species in this galaxy has technology that threatens our ships." It was true. Empire vessels were protected by energy shields that could stop any known weapon. Their beam arrays could destroy entire fleets with single shots. Most importantly, they're faster than light. Drives were centuries ahead of anything other species had developed. "The Marshal thinks some species might be developing new weapons," the officer explained. "Let them try," Zixthal replied. "Energy weapons, projectile weapons, nuclear weapons, we've seen everything. Nothing can challenge Imperial technology." The hegemony had conquered the galaxy not through numbers but through superior science. While other species fought with primitive tools, the Empire wielded forces that could reshape matter at the atomic level. Victory had been inevitable. Captain Steve Adams's trade ship appeared on the outer sensor grid, requesting permission to dock at Station Kepler 7. The humans ran several such ships, carrying supplies between their scattered research outposts and the Empire trade centers. "Another human merchant," the sensor operator reported. "Should we inspect his cargo?" Zixthal waved a dismissive hand. "Humans are too stupid to smuggle anything dangerous. Let him pass." The truth was that human technology was laughably primitive. They still used chemical rockets and metal projectiles. Their computers were barely capable of basic calculations. The Empire had studied human capabilities extensively and found them worthy only of slavery. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, similar scenes played out on hundreds of Imperial ships. Fleet commanders reviewed reports of minor infractions and colonial disputes. None saw any pattern or threat worth reporting to higher authorities. Admiral Krextor commanded the 3rd Imperial Fleet, responsible for the Outer Rim territories. His ships patrolled vast regions of space, keeping order among the conquered species. The duty was boring but necessary. "Sir, we're detecting increased trade traffic in the human sectors," his intelligence officer reported. "Define increased." Krextor responded without looking up from his tactical display. 30% more ships than normal, mostly small cargo vessels. Krextor shrugged. Humans breed like insects. They probably need more supplies for their growing populations. The Empire's surveillance systems were designed to detect military threats, large warships, weapons testing, fleet movements. Small civilian ships were beneath notice. This was a fundamental assumption that had worked for millennia. Back on the Imperial capital world, the High Council reviewed quarterly reports from across the galaxy. Each sector governor reported the same thing: complete control, no significant threats, tribute flowing as expected. The human situation remains stable, Kilnar's report stated. No signs of organized resistance. Their technology level continues to decline as expected. The Empire's strategy for managing conquered species was proven effective. Destroy their military, control their technology development, and keep them focused on survival rather than freedom. After a generation or two, most species accepted Imperial rule as natural. What about the intelligence reports of unusual human activity? Asked Counselor Vexhan. Investigated and dismissed, Kilnar replied smoothly. Humans are establishing new mining colonies and research stations. All activities are monitored and approved by Imperial oversight. The Council nodded in satisfaction. Humans were behaving exactly as predicted. Their expansion into other systems was carefully controlled and served Empire interests by providing new sources of raw materials. Zixthal reviewed the overnight reports from his ship's intelligence section. Nothing unusual. Some pirates destroyed in Sector 12. A trade dispute resolved in the Centauri colonies. Routine patrol reports from the human reservation. Sir, his aide approached carefully. There are some unusual energy readings from the outer human system. Define unusual. Short-range scans detected what might be construction activity near the asteroid belt, but long-range sensors show nothing significant. Zixthal considered this briefly. Humans were always building something: mining platforms, research stations, habitat modules. It was one of their more useful traits, probably expanding their mining operations. Humans are good at digging holes in rocks, the aide hesitated. Should we send a patrol to investigate? For humans building a mining station? Zixthal's tone conveyed his opinion of such a waste of resources. Focus on real threats. This conversation, repeated in various forms across the Empire, revealed the fatal flaw in Imperial thinking. 3,000 years of easy victories had bred complacency. The Empire no longer looked for threats because they assumed none could exist. Captain Steve Adams docked at Kepler 7 without inspection. His cargo manifest listed food supplies and manufactured goods for human colonies. Imperial customs officials stamped his papers without examination. They had searched human ships thousands of times over the decades and never found anything interesting. If they had looked more carefully, they might have noticed that his cargo containers were slightly heavier than usual. They might have wondered why food shipments contained trace amounts of rare metals. They might have questioned why a simple merchant needed such sophisticated navigation equipment. But they didn't look, because they already knew what they expected to find. The Empire's greatest strength was also its greatest weakness. Overwhelming technological superiority had made them lazy. They had forgotten that wars could be won through cunning as well as firepower. In 14 days, they would learn the price of arrogance. The message spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. On the mining world of Veltar Prime, workers stopped their excavation machines and looked up at the sky. For the first time in 2,000 years, they saw something impossible: Empire ships retreating in defeat. Kethvar, an elderly Veltar who remembered stories of freedom from his grandfather, stood among his fellow workers. His forearms trembled as he watched human ships pursue the fleeing Imperial fleet. The humans did it, he whispered. They actually beat the Empire. Around him, other Veltar began to understand what they were seeing. The Empire wasn't invincible. The masters who had enslaved their species for centuries could be defeated. Admiral Kate Miller received the first reports of alien uprisings within hours of humanity's latest victory. The Veltar had seized control of their primary mining facilities and were demanding independence. How many species are involved? She asked Steve Adams. 17 so far, he replied, studying intelligence reports from across the galaxy. The Veltar, the crystalline Zephi, the aquatic Mordan, and several others. They're all declaring independence from the Empire. Kate felt a mixture of excitement and concern. This was what humanity had hoped for. a galactic revolution against imperial tyranny. But coordinating multiple species would be far more complicated than fighting alone. Captain Maria Santos established the first interspecies alliance meeting on a neutral space station near the galactic rim. Representatives from a dozen conquered species gathered to discuss joining the rebellion. The Veltar delegation was led by Commander Thexanol, a younger warrior who had secretly studied human tactics through intercepted communications. His people were strong and resilient, perfect for ground combat operations. "We offer our strength to the Alliance," he declared. "For 2,000 years we have dreamed of this moment." The HFY representative was more cautious. Their species communicated through harmonic crystal resonance, making translation difficult. But their message was clear. They wanted freedom and were willing to fight for it. "Our ships are few," the crystal being chimed. "But our ability to interface with computer systems could be valuable against Empire technology." Maria realized that each species brought unique capabilities to the Alliance. The Veltar were natural warriors, the HFY were expert hackers, and the aquatic Morden could operate in environments that other species found impossible. "We need to coordinate our efforts," she explained. "Separate rebellions will be crushed individually. Together we can defeat the Empire." Jake Morrison led the first joint military operation, the liberation of the Altair colonies. His human fleet worked alongside Veltar ground forces and HFY technical specialists to assault a heavily fortified Empire base. The operation demonstrated both the potential and challenges of multi-species cooperation. Human quantum drives allowed the fleet to appear without warning, while Veltar soldiers proved incredibly effective in close combat. The HFY managed to disable the base's computer systems from the inside, but coordination was difficult. Each species had different communication methods, tactical doctrines, and cultural expectations. Jake found himself mediating disputes as much as fighting the Empire. "The Veltar want to charge directly at enemy positions," he reported to Admiral Kate. "The HFY prefers subtle infiltration. Humans are somewhere in between." Kate nodded thoughtfully. "We need to use each species where they're most effective. Don't try to make everyone fight the same way." High Inquisitor Zixthal watched the spreading rebellion with growing horror. His intelligence reports showed uprisings on dozens of worlds. Species that had been quiet slaves for centuries were suddenly declaring independence. "How did this happen so quickly?" he demanded of his advisors. "The human victories broke the psychological barrier," his intelligence chief explained. "Once the galaxy saw that the Empire could be beaten, others found the courage to rebel. The Empire's strategy of ruling through fear had backfired completely. When that fear was broken, their control crumbled with shocking speed. Fleet Marshal Vortek faced an impossible strategic situation. Human forces were striking at will across the galaxy, while allied species seized control of their home systems. His fleets were spread too thin to fight everyone at once. "We need to concentrate our forces," he told the High Council. "Crush one rebellion completely to discourage the others." But the rebels weren't giving him that opportunity. Every time Imperial forces moved to suppress one uprising, attacks would intensify elsewhere. It was like fighting a fire that spread faster than it could be extinguished. Captain Amy Foster coordinated humanity's role in the expanding alliance. Her ships carried Veltar assault troops to liberate their enslaved worlds while providing orbital fire support. The combination of human mobility and Veltar ground combat proved devastating to Empire forces. "Target the command bunker," Thexanol requested through the translation system. Amy's gunners fired kinetic projectiles that precisely destroyed the Empire facility without harming nearby civilian structures. The Veltar cheered as their oppressor's stronghold collapsed. Dr. Alex Turner worked with HFY technicians to develop new cyber warfare capabilities. The crystal being's natural ability to interface with computer systems, combined with human quantum communication technology, created unprecedented hacking abilities. "We can now disrupt Empire networks in real time," he reported to Admiral Kate. "The HFY can take control of enemy ship systems during combat." The Empire discovered that their own technology could be turned against them. Ships found their weapons firing at their own allies, while their navigation systems sent them into asteroid fields or stellar hazards. Ben Parker adapted his modular ship designs to accommodate alien crew members. Veltar warriors needed larger spaces and higher gravity, while HFY required crystalline interface chambers for their unique physiology. Multi-species vessels are operational, he announced. Each ship can carry mixed crews that complement each other's abilities. The result was warships more capable than anything a single species could produce. Human tactical flexibility, Veltar warrior instincts, and HFY technical expertise created a formidable combination. Steve Adams expanded his spy network to include aliens who had been secretly opposing the Empire for years. The Mordan had underwater cities that Imperial forces had never discovered, while the insectoid Claxty had hidden weapons caches on dozens of worlds. The resistance was always there, he reported. They just needed someone to prove rebellion was possible. The Empire's greatest weakness was revealed. They had never truly conquered the galaxy, only suppressed it. The moment their subjects saw a chance for freedom, the uprising spread like wildfire. Captain Tony Evans led a mixed fleet of human, Veltar, and HFY ships in the assault on Proxima Station. The battle showcased the Alliance's growing effectiveness as each species contributed their strengths. Human ships provided mobility and firepower, appearing and disappearing through quantum jumps. Veltar vessels charged directly into Empire formations with shields blazing and weapons firing. HFY infiltrators disabled enemy systems from within. Empire formation is breaking up, Tony reported. Their command structure can't handle attacks from multiple vectors simultaneously. The Empire's tactical doctrine assumed they would face enemies who fought like them, organized fleets using conventional strategies. Against opponents who combined different fighting styles, their responses were inadequate. Dr. Sam Mitchell worked with alien scientists to create new weapon technologies that combined their different approaches. Veltar kinetic amplifiers made human projectile weapons even more powerful, while HFY harmonic disruptors could shatter Empire shields. Integration is producing innovations none of us could achieve alone, he observed. The Alliance was becoming more than the sum of its parts. Lisa Chang discovered that HFY crystal technology could enhance human quantum drives, allowing instant travel across even greater distances. The improved drives let Alliance forces strike anywhere in the galaxy within minutes. We can now coordinate simultaneous attacks across the entire Empire, she announced. Their communication networks can't keep up with our mobility. Admiral Kate Miller stood before the Alliance Council, looking at representatives from 23 different species. Each had joined the rebellion after seeing that the Empire could be beaten. The next phase begins now, she announced. We strike at the Empire's core worlds, not to conquer them, but to liberate them. The psychological impact was spreading faster than military victories. Across the galaxy, species were learning that cooperation could defeat tyranny, that diversity was strength rather than weakness, and that the future could be different from the past. The Empire had created the instrument of its own destruction by forcing different species to live under one rule. Now those same species were uniting against their oppressors, bringing together capabilities that the galaxy had never seen combined. Commander Ryan Bell led the largest Alliance fleet ever assembled toward the Empire's inner systems. Human ships formed the core, but they were surrounded by vessels from dozens of species, each contributing their unique strengths to the common cause. Captain Amy Foster stood on the bridge of her flagship as the largest fleet in galactic history emerged from quantum space. Around her vessel, 10,000 ships from 30 different species materialized in perfect formation. The Empire's core defensive ring lay before them, bristling with weapons that had protected the heart of Imperial space for 1,000 years. All Alliance forces in position, her communications officer reported. Amy looked at the tactical display showing the massive fortress stations that guarded the approach to the Empire's capital system. Each station was larger than most planets, armed with weapons that could destroy entire fleets. Begin Phase 1, she ordered. The first wave consisted entirely of human vessels using Dr. Lisa Chang's latest innovation, ships that could create temporary wormholes to bypass defensive barriers. The Empire's fortress ring was designed to stop attacks from normal space, not from enemies who could appear anywhere. Admiral Kate Miller coordinated the assault from her command ship, watching as human forces materialized inside the defensive perimeter. For the first time in Imperial history, enemy vessels were attacking the core worlds from within their own protected space. Fortress Stations 7 and 12 are under direct assault, her tactical officer announced. Human boarding teams have reached their command centers. The Empire's defenders watched in horror as their impregnable fortresses were captured from the inside. Jake Morrison's commandos used personal quantum drives to appear directly on station bridges, taking control before anyone could react. Impossible, the fortress commander gasped as human soldiers materialized around him. Our shields stop all unauthorized transports, Jake smiled grimly. Your shields stop Imperial technology. We don't use Imperial technology. Meanwhile, Captain Ryan Bell led the assault on Dominion Prime, the Empire's primary fortress world. His fleet included Veltar assault ships that could ram through defensive barriers, HFY vessels that disrupted enemy targeting systems, and human ships that phased between dimensions to avoid weapons fire. Multiple enemy formations detected, the planet's defense coordinator reported. They're using tactics we don't recognize. The Empire's military doctrine was based on 3,000 years of successful conquest. Their response to every threat was overwhelming firepower applied through conventional tactics. But the Alliance fought differently. Veltar ships charged straight into the planet's defense grid with their shields at maximum power. The warriors aboard cared nothing for tactical finesse. They wanted to close with their enemies and destroy them in direct combat. Veltar vessels are ignoring our weapons fire, the defense coordinator said in disbelief. Their shields are absorbing everything we can throw at them. The Veltar had spent 2,000 years as slaves in the Empire's mines, building incredible physical strength and endurance. Their ships reflected these qualities, heavily armored and nearly impossible to stop once they began moving. At the same time, HFY infiltrators were taking control of the planet's computer networks. The crystalline beings could interface directly with electronic systems, turning the Empire's own defenses against them. Sir, our weapons platforms are firing on each other, a technician reported frantically. I can't regain control. The Empire's integrated defense network had become their weakness. Once the HFY gained access, they could manipulate any system connected to the planetary grid. Commander Tony Evans demonstrated humanity's boarding tactics during the assault on Supremacy Station, the Empire's naval academy. Instead of trying to destroy the massive facility, his forces captured it intact, preserving its knowledge and resources. Boarding pods away, he announced as hundreds of small craft launched from his ships. The pods moved slowly enough to avoid point defense systems, looking like debris or supply craft until they attached to the station's hull. Then human soldiers cut their way inside and began systematic capture of each level. The Empire's cadets and instructors had trained for ship-to-ship combat, not boarding actions. They found themselves fighting enemies inside their own corridors, using weapons designed for space warfare in close quarters. Fall back to Section 7, the Academy commander ordered. Seal all bulkheads. But the human soldiers moved through the station like water flowing around obstacles. They knew the layout from captured Imperial databases and had trained for this specific mission for months. Dr. Sam Mitchell's adaptive weapons proved devastating against the Empire's core defenses. His smart projectiles studied the fortress station's shield frequencies and armor composition, then modified themselves for maximum effectiveness. Kinetic rounds are adapting to our defenses in real time, an Imperial weapons officer reported. Each shot is more accurate and destructive than the last. The Empire's engineers watched helplessly as their strongest fortifications were systematically dismantled by weapons that learned from their own defensive responses. Fleet Marshal Vortek commanded the Empire's last major fleet from the super dreadnought Eternal Dominion. His remaining forces formed a defensive line around the Imperial capital, but they were vastly outnumbered and outmaneuvered. All ships, concentrate fire on the human command vessels, he ordered. His fleet unleashed everything they had: planet-killing beam weapons, antimatter torpedoes, gravity disruptors that could collapse enemy hulls. It was enough firepower to destroy most star systems, but the Alliance ships scattered in all directions, using quantum drives to appear and disappear faster than Imperial weapons could track. The massive energy blasts hit empty space while return fire came from unexpected angles. They're not fighting like a fleet, Vortek's tactical advisor observed. Each ship is operating independently but coordinating perfectly. Human tactical doctrine emphasized flexibility over formation flying. Every captain could make independent decisions while working toward common objectives. The Empire's rigid command structure couldn't adapt quickly enough. Ben Parker's modular ships demonstrated their ultimate evolution during the battle. What appeared to be a single human cruiser suddenly separated into 50 smaller vessels, each targeting a different Imperial ship. Target multiplication detected, an Imperial sensor operator announced. One ship has become an entire squadron. The Empire's targeting computers crashed trying to track so many individual threats. Their weapon systems were designed to engage large formations, not swarms of highly maneuverable fighters. High Inquisitor Zixthal watched the destruction from his command bunker deep beneath the Imperial capital. Reports flooded in from across the core systems. Fortresses captured, fleets destroyed, planets under siege. "How many ships do we have left?" he asked his aide. "Less than 10,000 operational vessels, sir. The Alliance fleet numbers over 50,000 and is growing as more species join the rebellion." Zixthal felt something he had never experienced before, the possibility of total defeat. The empire that had ruled for 3 millennia was collapsing in a matter of weeks. "Order all remaining forces to fall back to the capital system," he commanded. "We make our final stand here." Steve Adams coordinated intelligence operations that turned the Empire's own people against them. Many Imperial species had grown tired of endless warfare and oppression. They welcomed liberation, even from their former subjects. "Resistance. Cells are active on 12 core worlds," he reported to Admiral Kate. "They're providing landing sites for our ground forces and intelligence on Imperial defenses." The Empire discovered that loyalty based on fear disappeared quickly when that fear was broken. Their own citizens were opening the gates for Alliance forces. Dr. Alex Turner's quantum communication network allowed perfect coordination between Alliance forces across multiple star systems. Every ship and ground unit could share information instantly, creating unprecedented tactical awareness. "All Alliance forces are networked," he announced. "We can coordinate attacks across light years as if they were happening in the same room." The Empire's communication systems required hours to send messages across their territory. They were fighting enemies who could coordinate faster than they could even understand what was happening. Captain Maria Santos led the final assault on the Imperial Palace, where the last holdouts of the old regime had barricaded themselves. The building was a monument to Imperial power, filled with treasures stolen from conquered worlds. "Surrender now and you will be treated fairly," she broadcast to the defenders. But the Imperial elite knew that their reign of terror had ended. Some chose to fight to the death rather than face justice for their crimes. Others simply vanished, fleeing to hidden bunkers or distant colonies. Lisa Chang's research had produced one final innovation: weapons that could selectively target only Imperial military technology, while leaving civilian systems untouched. The Alliance could capture enemy facilities intact without harming innocent populations. "Precision strikes confirmed," she reported. "Enemy weapons offline, life support and civilian systems undamaged." The Empire's core worlds fell one by one, but they fell as liberated territories rather than conquered ruins. The Alliance had learned from humanity's example that true victory meant building something better, not just destroying what came before. As the last Imperial stronghold surrendered, Admiral Kate Miller stood in what had once been the Imperial throne room, now converted into a council chamber for the Galactic Alliance. Representatives from 47 different species sat around a circular table, debating the terms of the new government they were trying to create. "The Veltar delegation insists on maintaining their traditional warrior codes," the translator announced. "They want the right to settle disputes through combat trials." Kate sighed quietly. Building a democratic federation was proving more difficult than defeating the Empire. Each species had different customs, laws, and ideas about how civilization should work. Captain Jake Morrison entered the chamber and approached Kate's position. "The HFY are threatening to withdraw from the Alliance," he reported quietly. "They say the new trade regulations don't account for their crystalline biology." The challenges were endless. The HFY didn't use traditional currency. They traded in harmonic frequencies and crystalline matrices. The aquatic Morden needed different environmental controls than land-based species. The insectoid Claxti operated on completely different social structures. "We need to find common ground," Kate told the assembled delegates. "We fought together to win freedom. Now we need to learn to live together in peace." Dr. Lisa Chang had spent months developing translation technologies that allowed real-time communication between species with completely different languages and thought patterns. But technology couldn't bridge every cultural gap. The problem isn't communication, she explained to Kate during a break. It's fundamental differences in how species think about government, law, and individual rights. Some species had been ruled by emperors for so long they barely understood the concept of democracy. Others had tribal structures that emphasized collective decision-making. A few had never had governments at all, living in anarchistic societies that confused everyone else. Steve Adams provided intelligence reports on the challenges they faced across the former empire. 63 worlds have declared independence from everyone, he reported. They don't want to join the alliance or restore imperial rule. They just want to be left alone. Kate couldn't blame them. After centuries or millennia of oppression, many species preferred isolation to cooperation. Building trust would take time. Commander Ryan Bell led the Alliance peacekeeping forces that maintained order during the transition. His mixed crews of humans, Veltar and other species patrolled former Imperial territory, preventing conflicts between newly liberated worlds. The Rigel system is having problems, he reported during a briefing. 3 different species claim the same planets as ancestral homelands. It was a common problem. The Empire had moved populations around for thousands of years, mixing species on worlds far from their origins. Now everyone wanted to return to their traditional territories, but many of those worlds were occupied by someone else. We need neutral arbitrators, Kate decided. Species with no territorial claims who can help mediate disputes. Captain Amy Foster had taken on the challenge of integrating former Imperial forces into the new Alliance military. Many Imperial officers and soldiers wanted to serve the cause of freedom, but they needed retraining in Alliance tactics and values. The hegemony officers are having the most difficulty, she reported. They're used to giving orders to inferior species, not working as equals. The hegemony had ruled the Empire for 3,000 years. Even those who accepted defeat struggled to treat former subjects as peers. Some adapted well to the new reality, but others remained bitter and resentful. Ben Parker worked with alien engineers to develop new technologies that combined the best innovations from different species. Veltar strength enhancement, HFY computer interfaces, human adaptability. Together they could create wonders. The integrated shipyards are producing vessels unlike anything the galaxy has ever seen, he announced proudly. Ships that can adapt to any crew and any mission. Dr. Alex Turner faced a different challenge, dealing with Imperial loyalists who refused to accept the new order. Some former Imperial officers had gathered fleets of loyal ships and were trying to carve out new empires from the wreckage. Admiral Krextor has seized the Vega sector, he reported. He's declared himself Emperor of the Eastern Territories and is demanding tribute from nearby systems. Kate studied the intelligence reports with concern. How many ships does he have? About 300, Alex replied. All crews loyal to the old Empire. They're not using Alliance technology or tactics. It was a manageable threat militarily, but politically dangerous. If former Imperial forces could establish new empires, it would prove that nothing had really changed. The Alliance needed to demonstrate that the old ways were truly dead. Captain Tony Evans led the Alliance response to the Imperial loyalists. His fleet used the latest quantum drive technology to appear throughout the Vega sector simultaneously, surrounding Krextor's forces before they could react. This is Captain Evans of the Galactic Alliance, he broadcast to the Imperial remnant. Surrender now and you will be treated fairly. Continue resistance and face the consequences. Krextor's response was predictable. I will never surrender to inferior species. The Empire will rise again. The battle was brief and decisive. Alliance forces demonstrated all the tactical innovations that had defeated the Empire. Quantum mobility, adaptive weapons, multi-species coordination. Krextor's conventional fleet was overwhelmed in minutes. But instead of destroying the defeated Imperial ships, Tony offered their crews a choice. Join the Alliance or return to civilian life with full pardons. Most chose to stay and serve the cause of freedom. Why show mercy to our enemies? A Veltar officer asked. Tony smiled. Because we're trying to build something better than what came before. Revenge just creates more enemies. Admiral Kate Miller stood in what had once been the Imperial throne room. now converted into a council chamber for the Galactic Alliance. Representatives from 47 different species sat around a circular table, debating the terms of the new government they were trying to create. The Veltar delegation insists on maintaining their traditional warrior codes, the translator announced. They want the right to settle disputes through combat trials. Kate sighed quietly. Building a democratic federation was proving more difficult than defeating the Empire. Each species had different customs, laws, and ideas about how civilization should work. Captain Jake Morrison entered the chamber and approached Kate's position. The HFY are threatening to withdraw from the Alliance, he reported quietly. They say the new trade regulations don't account for their crystalline biology. The challenges were endless. The HFY didn't use traditional currency. They traded in harmonic frequencies and crystalline matrices. The aquatic Morden needed different environmental controls than land-based species. The insectoid Claxty operated on completely different social structures. We need to find common ground, Kate told the assembled delegates. We fought together to win freedom. Now we need to learn to live together in peace. Dr. Lisa Chang had spent months developing translation technologies that allowed real-time communication between species with completely different languages and thought patterns, but technology couldn't bridge every cultural gap. The problem isn't communication, she explained to Kate during a break. It's fundamental differences in how species think about government, law, and individual rights. Some species had been ruled by emperors for so long they barely understood the concept of democracy. Others had tribal structures that emphasized collective decision-making. A few had never had governments at all, living in anarchistic societies that confused everyone else. Steve Adams provided intelligence reports on the challenges they faced across the former empire. 63 worlds have declared independence from everyone, he reported. They don't want to join the Alliance or restore imperial rule. They just want to be left alone. Kate couldn't blame them. After centuries or millennia of oppression, many species preferred isolation to cooperation. Building trust would take time. Commander Ryan Bell led the Alliance peacekeeping forces that maintained order during the transition. His mixed crews of humans, Veltar, and other species patrolled former Imperial territory, preventing conflicts between newly liberated worlds. The Rigel system is having problems, he reported during a briefing. 3 different species claim the same planets as ancestral homelands. It was a common problem. The Empire had moved populations around for thousands of years, mixing species on worlds far from their origins. Now everyone wanted to return to their traditional territories, but many of those worlds were occupied by someone else. We need neutral arbitrators, Kate decided. Species with no territorial claims who can help mediate disputes. Captain Amy Foster had taken on the challenge of integrating former Imperial forces into the new Alliance military. Many Imperial officers and soldiers wanted to serve the cause of freedom, but they needed retraining in Alliance tactics and values. The hegemony officers are having the most difficulty, she reported. They're used to giving orders to inferior species, not working as equals. The hegemony had ruled the Empire for 3,000 years. Even those who accepted defeat struggled to treat former subjects as peers. Some adapted well to the new reality, but others remained bitter and resentful. Ben Parker worked with alien engineers to develop new technologies that combined the best innovations from different species. Veltar strength enhancement, HFY computer interfaces, human adaptability. Together they could create wonders. The integrated shipyards are producing vessels unlike anything the galaxy has ever seen, he announced proudly. Ships that can adapt to any crew and any mission. Dr. Alex Turner faced a different challenge, dealing with Imperial loyalists who refused to accept the new order. Some former Imperial officers had gathered fleets of loyal ships and were trying to carve out new empires from the wreckage. Admiral Krextor has seized the Vega sector, he reported. He's declared himself Emperor of the Eastern Territories and is demanding tribute from nearby systems. Kate studied the intelligence reports with concern. How many ships does he have? About 300, Alex replied. All crews loyal to the old empire. They're not using Alliance technology or tactics. It was a manageable threat militarily, but politically dangerous. If former Imperial forces could establish new empires, it would prove that nothing had really changed. The Alliance needed to demonstrate that the old ways were truly dead. Captain Tony Evans led the Alliance response to the Imperial loyalists. His fleet used the latest quantum drive technology to appear throughout the Vega sector simultaneously, surrounding Krextor's forces before they could react. "This is Captain Evans of the Galactic Alliance," he broadcast to the Imperial remnant. "Surrender now and you will be treated fairly. Continue resistance and face the consequences." Krextor's response was predictable. "I will never surrender to inferior species. The Empire will rise again." The battle was brief and decisive. Alliance forces demonstrated all the tactical innovations that had defeated the Empire. Quantum mobility, adaptive weapons, multi-species coordination. Krextor's conventional fleet was overwhelmed in minutes. But instead of destroying the defeated Imperial ships, Tony offered their crews a choice: join the Alliance or return to civilian life with full pardons. Most chose to stay and serve the cause of freedom. "Why show mercy to our enemies?" a Veltar officer asked. Tony smiled. "Because we're trying to build something better than what came before. Revenge just creates more enemies."